All right, we'll go ahead and get started. It's 4 o'clock. This is the Ttcda December meeting for 2024. Welcome to everyone here. Welcome, commissioners. Glad to see everyone. So, I do believe that we have a quorum, so that is fantastic. So we need, got the approval of the minutes. I think that everyone got the minutes, so if entertain a vote for approval.
Move to approve the minute.
Second.
Have an approval in a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, moving on. Applications for certificate of appropriateness. First up is Brittany Green, XL Signs LLC, 12-A-24-TOS. If we could get a staff report, please.
Right. This is a request to replace an existing monument sign for Pillar Primary Care located on the north side of Hardin Valley Road, east of Hardin Farms Lane. The property is zoned office, medical, and related services and technology overlay. The surrounding area includes mostly residential uses, though this area is starting to expand with commercial uses on Hardin Valley Road. In 2016, a certificate of appropriateness was approved for a single-sided monument sign near the driveway entrance of Hardin Valley Road, 20.2 feet from the right-of-way. The applicant intends to utilize the existing stone veneer base that was approved in 2016. The monument sign is 4 feet 10 inches tall and has a structure area of 38.67 square feet. The proposed signage will have a message area of 20.13 square feet and features the name, logo, and address. The applicant proposes removing the existing letters and then repairing and repainting the stucco surface in a flat gray finish. New dark and light blue acrylic letters with matte finishes will be applied to the stucco surface. Staff recommends approval of a certificate of appropriateness for a sign permit for the proposed monument sign with the following condition: meeting all relevant requirements of the Knox County zoning ordinance as appropriate.
All right, thank you. Any questions for staff? All right, is there anybody here for the applicants? They don't have to say anything, but, all right.
I think it's pretty straightforward. We're just proposing using a.
Sorry, if you want to speak, you'll need to come up to the mic and give us your name and your address, please. No, you're fine.
My name is Brittany Green, and our company address is 912 Forsyth Street in Knoxville, Tennessee. I think our sign is pretty straightforward. We're using 3/4 inch flat acrylic letters and basically stud mounting them to the existing fascia of that sign. So, do you have any questions for me? Okay, thank you.
All right, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve for staff recommendation.
We have a second.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion, an appropriate second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, thank you. All right, moving on. Baker Jones Sign Co. Inc. 12-B-24-TOS. If we can get a staff report, please.
This is a request to replace an existing building sign with a new sign for Type 1 Energy, located in the Pellissippi Corporate Center, northeast of Cherahalla Boulevard and southeast of Camp Fair Lane. The property is zoned business park and technology overlay. Here is the zoning map. And the surrounding area largely consists of office and commercial uses. The area of the proposed building sign is 48 square feet, which is within the maximum allowable area of 100 square feet. It will feature the company name and logo and consist of a brushed aluminum panel with individually mounted channel letters. The paneling will be mounted directly onto the building facade. The logo and lettering will be composed of aluminum backs with plexi faces and illuminated with white LED lighting. Both the panel and lettering will have matte finishes. The sign has 4 colors, gray and 3 shades of blue. The 3 shades of blue are subtle and integral to the company's corporate image. Per Ttcda guideline 4.1.6, the number of colors may exceed 3 where it is desirable to preserve a corporate image. Staff recommends approval of a certificate of appropriateness for a sign permit for the proposed building sign with the following condition, meeting all relevant requirements of the Knox County zoning ordinance as appropriate.
All right, thank you. Any questions for staff? All right, is there anybody here for the applicants? All right. I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve per staff recommendation.
Do we have a second?
A second.
All right, we have a motion, appropriate second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, next up, Benjamin Boer, Allen Sign Company, 12-C-24-TOS. And if we could get a staff report, please.
This is a request to replace the existing monument sign for the Y-12 Federal Credit Union Operating Center located on the south side of Cheryl Hollow Boulevard, north of Charleroi Road. Last month, a certificate of appropriateness was issued to replace the monument sign for the bank building on the south side of the property. Per guideline 4.3.1, one monument sign is permitted per building, allowing 2 monument signs for this property. The property is zoned business park and technology overlay. And here is an aerial view of the site for context. There's a mix of commercial and office uses in the area. Currently, the monument sign is double-sided and features a stone masonry base. The applicant plans to remove and dispose of the existing sign cabinet while reusing the stone base for the new signage. In 2003, the base was installed 5 feet from the right-of-way and 26 feet from the curb without prior Ttcda approval. The placement of the base requires a waiver from guideline 4.3.2 to reduce the minimum setback from 20 feet to 5 feet. The proposed double-sided signage will feature the company name and logo. It will be composed of aluminum with acrylic push-through lettering and illuminated with white LED lighting. The sign will have 3 colors, white, blue, and red, with a matte finish. The total area for both sides is 108.28 square feet, which is within the maximum allowable area of 150 square feet. The proposed sign with the existing ground mount is 6 feet 7 inches, 7 inches over the allowable height per Ttcda guideline 4.3.3. The approved monument sign on the south side of the property has an identical stone mount and received a waiver to increase the allowable height to 6 feet 7 inches. Staff recommends the following actions on the required waivers from the design guidelines. 1, to reduce the minimum setback for a monument sign from 20 feet to 5 feet because it has been in place since 2003 and does not impact site distance. 2, to increase the maximum allowable sign height from 6 feet to 6 feet 7 inches to maintain a cohesive signage theme for the property. Staff recommends approval of a certificate of appropriateness for a sign permit subject to one condition, meeting all relevant requirements of the Knox County ordinance as appropriate.
All right, thank you, staff. Any questions? All right, is someone here for the applicant?
Yes.
All right, I'll entertain a motion if there's no questions.
Make a motion that we accept.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second for approval. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. All right, for this next item, I'm going to turn it over to Commissioner Hickey.
Item number is 6A-24-TOG for Level Place LLC and Level Place at Cornerstone Drive LLC. And they are requesting a 60-day postponement. Is the applicant here? Is there a motion for a 60-day postponement?
Motion to postpone for 60 days.
Second.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
All right, thank you. All right, next up on the list, we have Diane's View, which is 10-A-24-TOG. If we could get a staff report, please.
This is a request for a grading plan for 2 parcels comprising of 2.32 acres on Level Road. The northernmost parcel included in this request, the rectangular shaped parcel, is to be developed, and the topsoil will be removed and stored on the abutting southern parcel, the triangle shaped one, in a stockpile. So this property is zoned RB General Residential and Planned Commercial and in the technology overlay. The PC zone requires approval of development plan by the Planning Commission. So this will be heard on Thursday, 12G24 DP. No use has been determined for the PC portion. The applicant has stated that it will be a stockpile on the property and will be removed within 90 days. The TO zone requires a grading plan and building plan to be reviewed before any permits are issued. Building plan will have to be returned to this body for review. Both parcels are in the hillside protection overlay, but have been previously disturbed. Because each lot has been previously disturbed, they are exempt from review from the hillside and ridgetop development guidelines, section 1.12. The rear of the property will remain undisturbed, and the plan clearly marks the limits of disturbance, which includes approximately 0.06 area. So that area on the site that's in the rear essentially will remain undisturbed. So the stockpile is approximately 5,788 square feet. The site plans state that the stockpile area will store topsoil and other material. The other material to be included is just other dirt types. The grading plan shows a moderate change to the topography, and the grade in the land. The stormwater will flow similarly in the same direction that it is now. And this aligns with section 1.2.1, which calls for grading to complement natural landforms. Ttcda guidelines do not have a lot of criteria for grading when the HP area does not apply. Other than complementing natural landforms, the only other stipulations are for a grading plan to be prohibited until Ttcda has approved the plans and issued a certificate of appropriateness, and that grading be kept at a minimum during the development process. So there's a sediment basin along the level road frontage on the RV zone property. So any future development that will occur at the rear will occur at the rear of this sediment basin. And silt fencing has been provided around the stockpile and within the middle of the RV zone section at the lowest point. And the applicant must comply with the Knox County Stormwater Management Plan requirements. This grading plan should not adversely affect any surrounding properties. This is a site plan, and it shows the building setbacks for the RV zone. The Ttcda guidelines have more significant setbacks, so while we're not reviewing this site plan today, the applicant has been notified that they would need to request waivers if they would want to keep these setbacks. But when they come back for the building plan, these plans could change, so we're not reviewing this today. So this request is in compliance with the Ttcda guidelines with the noted conditions. The first couple are standard, meeting all applicable requirements of Knox County Department of Engineering and Public Works, meeting all applicable requirements of Knox County zoning ordinance. And then this number 3 is a standard one that they also have for all development plans. So if during the design plan phase or construction of development it is discovered that unforeseen offsite improvements within the right-of-way are necessary, the developer will either enter into a memorandum of understanding with the county for these improvements or reimburse the county for their direct expenses, if completed by the county crews to make corrections deemed necessary. And number 4, removal of the topsoil and other material on that parcel 118HC004 within 90 days of construction, completion of the parcel to the north. Are any questions?
All right.
We've got a couple with Commissioner Frazier.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a quick question, looking at A4, where it states, because each lot has been previously disturbed, they are exempt from review under the Hillside and Ridgetop Development Guidelines. Can I get some clarification on that as to why would they be exempt?
What's my question?
Because the HP guidelines are supposed to be preserving slopes that are naturally occurring. So this one was man-made. It was, I think, a borrowed pit from when they were creating Lovell Road. And so because it's been graded and cleared and everything already, there's really not a natural slope or a natural sort of features to protect because they've already been cleared and graded. And then also with the sediment basement being at the front of the property, are there any plans to do any sort of protection as far as aesthetics, looking at that from the road?
So they did provide some landscaping on the site plan, but we're not reviewing the building plans at this stage. So for the grading plan, it's not really relevant.
Okay. And then also under comments, it says no permanent use has been proposed. So we don't know what the intentions are.
Right.
We're still just looking at the grading plan.
We don't know the use for this triangle-shaped property. This one is where they're gonna put the temporary stockpile and then remove it in 90 days. So as far as we know, they're not developing on this one at this time. But just the apartment building, or they're proposing to do a 21-unit apartment building on this parcel.
Thank you.
Commissioner Cole?
Yes, following up on the first question about previously disturbed, so it wasn't ever hillside protected?
So the map is just kind of, they take the measurements from the sky with, throwing radar down to kind of get those slopes and things like that, and it's just like placed on the property. But the intent of the plan that goes along with this is for natural areas to be preserved. So, in some cases you're looking at it and it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It's just, you kind of have to look at it on a case-by-case basis. In some areas, there could be largely green, but it's in hillside protection because if it's so close to a ridge line or something like that. So it's not a perfect mapping of conditions, and it's kind of ebbs and flows. It's an old map, and it predates a lot of the things that have occurred. I think this map probably predates the Lovell Road when it was widened and expanded, so.
And I guess the reason I'm asking is to help me understand and do this better in the future is, so, I just want to make sure I understand. So at one point in time, potentially this was hillside protected and somebody came in and did some things to it, and now because they've done those things, we can't say that anymore? We can't put that protection on it anymore?
There's really nothing left to protect. So I'm not sure if it's Ttcda that did that, because again, that was a borrow pit for when Lovell Road was expanded. And since that's I believe it's a state route, so that would have been, that body that did that. And so, you're kind of like penalizing this applicant for Ttcda's work in that case. A lot of times when we see these sites that have been previously disturbed, again, because there's man-made slopes versus naturally occurring slopes and naturally occurring ridge lines and things like that we want to protect, which isn't the case when you've come through and done a borrow pit on the property already.
Okay, thank you.
All right. I do have a question. It's related to the triangle piece of property and why we're tying that to this request.
So it's in the PC zone. So I guess for planning commission, they require a development plan, even if it's a grading plan.
But are they, I'm sorry, but are they actually, they're not developing that. They're only using it as a stockpile because there is no grading plan for that. It's just, so that, I guess that's my question. Typically,
They are grading.
there is,
Right.
okay,
Right here.
okay.
So there's some grading on the site.
Okay, so that clears it up then. I couldn't understand why it was being pulled in just for stockpile, because normally you can get a permit to stockpile soil on a temporary basis. without grading or anything else, so, okay. Makes sense.
Yep.
All right, any other questions? Or is there anybody here representing the applicant? No? All right, I will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve per staff recommendation.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. All right, next up, Stuart Anderson, AIA, George Armour Ewart Architect, 12-A-24-TOB. If we could get a staff report, please.
This is a proposal for a new office building that's 83,000 square feet and approximately 3 stories tall at Dutchtown Road and the Felicity Parkway interchange. The new building is a part of the Century Parks Business Park, and it will be accessed off of Investment Drive, the existing private right-of-way within the office park. This property is in the city of Knoxville and it's zoned OP and Technology Park overlay. The office park zoning district is intended to accommodate large office developments and office park campuses. The OP zone does not require a development plan and the office use permitted by right, so there's no associated planning commission case. These surrounding areas, a mix of vacant land, residential uses, and office uses. This property is a part of the Century Park subdivision, which has developed with a range of office uses. It meets the minimum parking standards, and a sidewalk has been proposed from the building entrance all the way down to the roundabout. And this is a zoomed in version of the site plan. A turning template has been provided, which shows that trucks can adequately maneuver through the drive aisles. The office building will be 3 stories, approximately 50 feet, 10 inches tall. The proposed materials are brick veneer with an aluminum frame storefront system. There are some metal wall panels and columns breaking up the window system. The landscape plan meets the guidelines, and a landscape buffer has been proposed all along Mayberry Hood Road, right here. There are some screens that include a 10-foot vegetated buffer of existing trees. A tree protection fence will be installed for the groundbreaking to preserve trees along Mayberry Hood Road. Turkey Creek runs through the northern portion of the property, and a 35-foot stream buffer has been provided. The plat of the property showed a sinkhole in the middle. The building has been placed just outside the sinkhole buffer. All lights are entirely cut off and the wall packs have a dark finish. The lighting plan meets the Ttcda guidelines for lighting intensity. For example, the lighting levels are less than 0.5 foot candles at the property lines, and light poles are 20 feet tall in the parking lots. No signage has been provided at this time, so this board will review any future signage. This request is in compliance with the Ttcda guidelines, and staff recommends approval subject to 2 conditions: meeting all applicable requirements of City of Knoxville Engineering and Public Works and the City of Knoxville zoning ordinance. Are there any questions?
Yes.
Mr. Cole?
So the building has been placed just outside of the sinkhole buffer. What is the sinkhole buffer? And does it vary based on the type of building and the size, or?
Yeah, so I think it's a 50-foot buffer from the sinkhole, and I think traditionally engineering doesn't. They're more concerned about residential structures than they are commercial.
Let's say it's
In the insurance world, I think we should be worried about that.
I'd say I've actually never heard that It's a standard 50-foot buffer, and they're required to, if they do want to build any closer than that, then they have to get a geological survey to prove that it's not a sinkhole. So there's a little bit of strategy, I guess, that goes into that. But if they're not planning on building within that 50 feet, they can just plot it as like they have it here.
So then my question is, because I couldn't figure out where exactly it was in the layout, and are they allowed to build a parking lot on it?
Yeah, parking lot's not not considered a structure.
Okay.
So I don't think it's on their plan, but I had found it through KGIS on their plat. There's, if you pull that up, which I don't know if I.
Yeah, no, I go out there quite often. I refer
Okay.
clients to go out there quite often too. But I just wanted to check and make sure. So there's no buffer zone requirement for anything other than buildings, not for lands like parking or.
I can double check that for the parking lot. Let me double check that real quick. I think you can hit escape and that'll allow you to bring KGIS up if you want to show the sinkhole does.
Okay.
Oh, I like it.
Do we have anybody here for the applicant? We have two. Do you have any comments or? No? All right.
And again, I recognize I'm looking out to the future, but I gotta wanna get insurance on it.
This isn't a part of the ordinance I'm familiar with, so bear with me while I try to
No,
find
that's
that.
fine. And again, it's helpful to me to know for future. That's kind of the reason I'm asking the question.
Yeah, this is more engineering purview, but we don't have anyone from engineering here.
This is the sinkhole, the like little check mark things are the closed contours which show a sinkhole, and then this dotted line is the buffer that you can't build within. So everything outside of, and my understanding is it's just structures, and that it's they're really more concerned with residential, but I don't know.
And do we have anywhere where the building overlays on top of this so we could see that the structure really is not on top of the sinkhole?
I don't think so, but when I was kind of comparing back where the building was, now that went to the start. So the buffer, this is, where's the here's- the buffer, I was thinking was started just outside of here where this little thing is, and if you go back
Didn't
there.
it look like where the crosswalk was?
Yeah.
Right at the end of where they paved it.
Yeah.
You can see that,
Mm-hmm.
that would come straight up.
So if they continue the crosswalk, it'll go across them?
Well, I don't know if that's true, but the building would be to the right of that.
Again, just trying to learn.
So understanding exactly where that is, engineering, does engineering do a deeper dive? They do a deeper dive on that anyway, so, yeah. All right, any other questions, comments? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve for staff recommendation.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, next up, Chris Sharp, Urban Engineering, 12-B-24-TOB. If we could get a staff report, please.
This is a proposal for 2 new office warehouse buildings on a 4.4 acre site located on the north side of Checkerboard Lane and west side of Simmons Road. The proposed development will be on a shared lot with an existing office warehouse building. The property is zoned business and manufacturing and technology overlay. Office warehouses are permitted use in the CB zone, and the zone allows more than one primary use on the lot. The property has driveway access from Checkerboard Lane. Building A will be 11,700 square feet and positioned at an angle relative to the right-of-way near the property's western side. And Building B will be 11,600 square feet and oriented parallel to Checkerboard Lane. With the addition of the 2 proposed buildings, the subject property is still in compliance with the ground area coverage, floor area ratio, and impervious area ratio standards per section 1.3. The property is allowed a ground area coverage of 25%, a floor area ratio of 30%, and an impervious area ratio of 70%. The proposed development has an 18.4% ground area coverage, 18.4% floor area ratio, and 45.6% impervious area ratio. There are also 2 loading docks on the property. The loading dock at Building A is oriented towards the driveway entrance, while the loading dock at Building B is faces Building A and runs parallel to the right-of-way. The landscape plan shows 4 evergreen trees that will be planted in the front yard of Building A to help screen the loading dock from the street. The retaining wall and office building will shield the loading dock at Building B. Parking will be placed in front of the buildings and oriented towards Checkerboard Lane. Ttcda guidelines require a minimum of 12 parking spaces and a maximum of 18 spaces per building. The applicant is proposing 12 spaces for Building A and 13 spaces for Building B. The applicant is requesting a waiver to reduce the front setback from when parking is in the front yard from 60 feet to 56.3 feet for Building A. The waiver was requested due to the positioning of the building to avoid encroaching onto the drainage easement. Moving the building back from the right-of-way would require more waivers from the side and rear setback requirements, whereas only 1 waiver is required with the current positioning. The applicant is requesting a waiver from guidelines 1.7.9 and 3.1.8 to reduce the parking lot setback from 20 feet to 16.4 feet for Building A, and a reduction from 20 feet to 9 feet for Building B. The waiver was requested due to the existing swale, storm drain system, and drainage easement behind the proposed development, which precludes the repositioning of the buildings farther back on the site. All other landscape guidelines have been met, including the planting around 50% of the buildings and landscaping at the entrances and parking lots. Building A is 1 story and 18 feet tall. It features a long, unbroken facade clad in metal panels. The landscape plans include Spartan junipers and dwarf crepe myrtles, and the landscape bedding along the building foundation to help soften the long, unbroken facade. Proposed materials for the office's exterior include a brick veneer on the walls, a stone veneer trim along the foundation, and an aluminum canopy. Like Building A, Building B will be 1 story and 18 feet tall and use the same materials. No lighting is proposed for this development, and no signage is proposed at this time. Should signage be desired in the future, it would need to be submitted in a separate application. Staff recommends the following actions on the required waivers from the design guidelines. 1, to approve the waiver to reduce the front setback when parking is in the front yard from 60 feet to 56.3 feet to avoid encroaching on the drainage easement, and because sufficient space remains for trees and shrubbery between the parking lot and the street. Furthermore, the request does not significantly deviate from the design standards and the reduction is minimal. 2, to approve the waiver to reduce the parking lot setback for Building A from 20 feet to 16.4 feet to avoid encroaching on the drainage easement. And 3, to approve the waiver to reduce the parking lot setback from 20 feet to 9 feet for Building B to avoid encroaching on the drainage easement. Staff recommends approval of this request for a certificate of appropriateness for a building permit subject to 3 conditions: meeting all applicable requirements of the Knox County Department of Engineering and Public Works, meeting all requirements of the Knox County zoning ordinance, and obtaining Ttcda approval of signage in a separate application if signage is desired in the future.
All right, thank you. Any questions for staff? Yes, Commissioner Cole.
So, based on the plan, they're showing where they're putting this, planting to soften the facade, so we're approving that as well. And they have to then stick to that, right?
Yes, yes. I mean, they're allowed minor adjustments with plant materials and things of that nature. Right.
Somewhat, so if the plans deviate when they get to if the plans deviate when it gets to Knox County codes, when they're reviewing it, if it's not what's approved, they tend to kick it back to us, and then we'll take a look at it. And if it warrants an administrative approval, then we'll go ahead and do that, just staff. And if it requires a waiver or if it's substantial, then you all would see it. So in that sense, they are required to comply. And because they usually provide a planting legend that's got the plant species and things like that, and the location of the plantings, that's kind of what they're bound to, are those things.
Okay, and that's the reason I was a little confused, because I know we don't have that planting specifications in here, other than just saying types of plants, and then it's got some pictures with some little dots on it. But they give you something more specific at some point in time.
So on the landscape plans, which I can pull up in a little bit more detail, there is a table on sheet L1 that shows a list of plants, and it shows the number and size.
Okay, I just was trying to figure it out, whether there was a set number when in the verbiage it just says plans include, and then I didn't necessarily see a plan for what they were gonna do. So that's part of the process. Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions? All right, I don't think anybody's here for the applicant. Huh? Yes.
It's really
Commissioner
just a
Brady.
comment and a clarification, just because I believe the district commissioner had a question about the access being just from Checkerboard Lane. And it states this several times, so just want to state that the access is Checkerboard Lane. Great, okay.
All right, any other questions? All right, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve for staff recommendation.
Do we have a second? We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, I am going to turn it over to Michelle.
Okay, so the meeting schedule that you all had voted on, I think it's a few meetings ago, had an error, so we were bringing it back to you all for an additional, since you voted on to approve it, you have to vote on the revision. So there was an error in the application deadline for the February Ttcda meeting. It's supposed to be December 30th. And the original plan said December 22nd. So we're just revising that before we post it on our website. So that will require you all to vote and approve.
So, do I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The amendment carries. Anything else?
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Yes.
Just curious, is there any way we can get the detailed reports prior to the meeting? I know we get the agenda and there is some of the case summary and the staff reports, but we don't get a lot of this detailed information.
So it's on the website. I think typically that's where I go to get it.
So when I went out to the website and clicked, and maybe I need an education.
You could click on the case file.
You click on the
Didn't show up on
agenda.
case file either.
If you click on the agenda and then click on the case file, that's when it pops up.
I did do that.
We did have a website error we discovered this morning when we came in where the case files were not showing up, but typically the case files will be on the week before,
I was
yeah.
to say, I'm not crazy. I know, yeah. Perfect, thank you.
So, but if that situation does occur, because I did notice that first thing it was the first thing I did that came in this morning, it was that way, but it was corrected not long after that. I'm not sure what time, but if that occurs, just send an email, I think, to staff and say, hey, I need this information.
I just figured I'd get your.
So.
I went through everything that was there.
I got you. All right. Other questions, comments? All right. Thanks to staff and thanks to the commissioners. I hope everyone has a wonderful Christmas. Enjoy the rest of December and Happy New Year. Thanks.
All right, gotta run.